By 1914, the great powers of Europe are locked into a geographic trap. The Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary, find themselves surrounded by a rival alliance of France, Britain, and Russia, ensuring that any localized spark will trigger a continent-wide explosion. That spark arrives June 28th in Sarajevo. A 19-year-old nationalist named Gavrilo Princip assassinates Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. This single event triggers a rapid chain reaction of mobilizations. Within weeks, the tangled defensive treaties drag 6 million men into a conflict that most of them assume will be short, decisive, and glorious. Europe's leaders operate on 19th-century military doctrines, expecting rapid cavalry charges and honorable maneuvers. They are blind to how industrial capacity has turned the modern battlefield into a slaughterhouse. The reality of modern war is a physical shock. Traditional infantry charges are leveled by rapid-fire machine guns and heavy artillery that can pulverize entire regiments from miles away. To avoid total annihilation on the surface, both sides attempt to outflank each other in a frantic race to the sea. When they finally run out of room at the coast, they stop maneuvering and start digging for survival. This creates a 350-mile scar of earth and timber stretching from the English Channel to the Swiss border. Millions of men are now locked into a narrow maze of mud, rats, and constant shell fire. For the next 4 years, generals will face the same impossible problem. How do you secure a victory when moving forward means walking directly into a mechanical wall of death? As the lines stabilize, military strategy shifts toward a grim new logic: attrition. Commanders realize they can no longer capture territory effectively, so they decide to simply kill the enemy soldiers faster than they can be replaced. This strategy reaches its peak at the Battle of Verdun. The German High Command chooses to attack a symbolic French fortress, specifically because they know France will sacrifice everything to defend it. The goal is to bleed France white. To relieve the pressure on Verdun, the British launch a massive offensive at the Somme. They believe a week-long artillery bombardment has destroyed the German defenses, clearing the way for the infantry to simply walk across the battlefield. The bombardment fails. When the British climb out of their trenches, they are cut down by intact German machine gun nests. In just a few hours, the British Army suffers 57,000 casualties. Feeding massive numbers of human bodies into the industrial meat grinder results in almost no movement on the map. The strategy of attrition is failing to break the stalemate. The desperation to break the deadlock fuels a terrifying arms race. At Ypres, the Germans deploy poison gas for the first time on the Western Front. It forces the Allies to abandon their lines, though the advantage is short-lived, as both sides quickly issue primitive masks to their troops. To cross no man's land, the British develop the tank. These armored boxes are designed to crush barbed wire and shield infantry from machine gun fire. They are slow and mechanically unreliable, but they represent a new industrial solution to the stalemate. The war expands into the sky. What begins as simple reconnaissance by biplanes quickly escalates into strategic bombing by giant zeppelins and high-speed dogfights between machine gun-equipped fighter planes. These technological leaps introduce terrifying new capabilities to the battlefield, yet none of them are powerful enough to end the war. To win a war of attrition, you must starve the enemy's economy. Britain uses its naval superiority to blockade German ports, cutting off the food and raw materials Germany needs to survive a long conflict. Germany retaliates with its own blockade. They deploy U-boats to sink merchant and civilian ships, turning the Atlantic into a war zone where any vessel carrying supplies to Britain is targeted without warning. This strategy turns the world against Germany. When they sink the British passenger liner Lusitania, killing nearly 1,200 people, including 128 Americans, the neutral United States is pushed to the brink of joining the war. The inability to win on land has forced the conflict to mutate, dragging global trade and civilian populations directly into the crossfire. By 1917, the strain of total war causes the Russian Empire to collapse. Faced with famine and mass desertions, Russia falls into revolution and is forced to sign a peace treaty, surrendering vast amounts of territory to Germany. Germany moves its eastern divisions to the west for one last massive spring offensive. They must win the war now before the full weight of American industrial resources and fresh manpower can reach the front lines. The German attack breaks through in several places, but the troops are exhausted and hungry. The Allies launch a coordinated counterattack, utilizing fresh American divisions and new combined arms tactics to push the Germans into a general retreat. With its military defeated and its population at the point of revolt, Germany seeks an armistice. On November 11, 1918, the fighting finally stops. The war ends because the industrial engines of the nations operating them finally broke under the strain. This chart shows the human cost of the industrialized slaughter. The data reveals the scale of the loss: 9.5 million soldiers and 7 million civilians dead across 4 years of fighting. In 1919, the victors meet at the Palace of Versailles to redraw the world map. They impose harsh, punitive terms on Germany, requiring massive reparations and the total acceptance of war guilt. Before the war, Europe was dominated by the German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires. The Paris treaties dismantle this old order. Those 4 empires shatter into new nation-states like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia, while new borders are carved across the Middle East. The war birthed the terrifying reality of modern industrialized combat, but the harsh peace it achieved left a fractured world simmering with resentments that would soon ignite another conflict.